What is up, Guardians? I hope you're all enjoying the Witch Queen. Today I bring you a guide on how to prepare and what to expect from Grandmasters. I'm sure you're all aware Grandmasters release April 5th, so the next weekly reset. You will be heading in to start your Grandmasters. So what can we expect, how can we prepare, and why bother trying? So let's start with what's the point in doing Grandmasters. Grandmasters are a great way of farming a lot of items such as exotic armor, ascendant shards, and adept Nightfall weapons. Adept Nightfall weapons are higher tier versions of normal Nightfall drops that you can also equip with adept mods. The Nightfall weapons and their adept versions up for grabs this season are the duty bound auto rifle, palindrome hand cannon, comedian shotgun, plug 1 fusion rifle, silicon neuroma sniper rifle, and the hothead rocket launcher. The two new weapons this season are the duty bound and the silicon neuroma, so keep an eye out for them. Now what can we expect from Grandmasters? Well, to begin with, it will be set at a light level of 1600, so already that's 40 above the pinnacle cap. The lowest light level you'll be able to enter Grandmasters is 1575. If you aren't at that level yet, the game will not allow you to even enter them. We also know that the Nightfall will be the Scarlet Keep, so it's a strike most of us should be familiar with, as it's been around for a while now. The difference between Grandmasters this season and last season is the modifiers. We no longer have the strike specific modifiers making two things do increased damage. Instead, we now have acute burn modifiers, which means depending on the element we receive 50% more damage of that type and deal 25% more. Last season we got no bonus ourselves but 25% more received, so it's been an all round 25% boost. So when we have all these modifiers, how do we prepare before Grandmasters are released? The main thing is loadouts, mods, weapons, and even setting up subclasses properly. When we talk about mods, we're either looking at helping ourselves deal even more damage or have more damage resistance. With the release of Witch Queen, the way we acquire mods was reworked. The only way to get armor mods is from Ada 1. She has a daily cycle of 4 different mods, so always make sure when you go to the tower, check what she has. For the weapon mods, you will need to check out the gunsmith. He'll also be selling 4 weapon based mods, so make sure you start going to both and collecting up if you don't already have lots of mods. Now when it comes to weapons, we want to try and make the most of the 25% damage boost the acute burn modifier gives us, so we want to plan our weapons appropriately to fit that. However, we need to keep in mind the shield types that we have to deal with. Since I've been doing many Master Nightfalls, I have found a few good examples for this. One of the best examples I can think of is the Trinity Ghoul exotic bow. It worked perfectly for me in the Lightblade Strike. Not only did it receive a 25% damage boost from the acute burn, but it was also able to deal with the majority of shield being arc on knights, and it was capable of dealing with barrier champions as well. That's without mentioning its amazing ag clearing capabilities. This will 100% be going into a loadout for either me or my fire team members when this strike cycles around. For each burn, here's the exotics I think will be useful, but keep in mind what champions you have for each strike. For Arc, the Trinity Ghoul, Risk Runner, and Divinity. For Solar, Tiku's Divination, Sleeper Simulant, Parasite, Galahorn, and Polaris Lance. For Void, Graviton Lance, Lemon Arc, and Laurent's Driver. Even though Laurent can't stun champions anymore, it's still incredible for ag clear. And don't forget the new collective obligation raid weapon. For Stasis, we don't have many exotics. There are plenty of powerful legendary stasis weapons though. Finally, don't forget about the exotics with intrinsic stunning capabilities. Stuff like Arbalist, Divinity, and Ariana's Vow. For this week's Nightfall, which has Void Burn, I actually ended up using Bastion, as it has intrinsic unstoppable, and it meant that I still could use a special weapon. My loadout was Bastion for unstoppables, Funnel Web for overloads, as well as overload grenades and threaded needle. Learn to set up loadouts effectively. Realistically, if you have the right champions, you may not be forced to use certain weapons. For example, if you have overload and barrier champions, you can use overload grenade to deal with overloads, and run high discipline to be able to get your grenade regenerated. And then Arbalist, and that way you don't have to use assault rifles, SMGs, bows or scouts. Learn what works for you and your team. A good way of practicing is just by running Master Nightfalls, getting used to champion spawns, and knowing what to expect. Learn, oh, I need to deal with void shields at this point, or I need to have solar ready at this point. Piece it together as a team, and get prepared as possible. Last season my team ran 2 or 3 Master Nightfalls just to get in the pattern of the Nightfall, so we got comfortable before we even tried Grandmasters. As for subclasses, the weekly bonus isn't always the best to use. Just because it's Arc Burn doesn't mean we want an Archrider Hunter, or if it's Stasis Burn, we don't necessarily want Winter's Wrath. Communicate with your team. Chances are you will have a well Warlock for survivability, a Hunter using Invis with maybe Omnioculus to help you with damage resist, and a Titan using Thunder Crash with Cures for big damage numbers. However, that isn't the case for my team. Every Nightfall I have done on my Titan, no matter the burn, I have used my Void Super, because the aspect Bastion helps my team out. My setup is Bastion with CITAN'S Rampart, so I can place my barricade, we sit behind it, get overshields, and can shoot through while nothing hits us. So learn what works for you and your team. Of course some things are going to be better than others. I would advise hunters running Stasis or Void over Arc and Solar. However, it comes down to your playstyle. Make it work and build your character appropriately. Now as for weapons that are non-exotic, we have many good choices this season. And don't forget about crafting. My new favourite stunning weapon for Unstoppables is the Syncopation Pulse Rifle. And I have this weapon crafted at level 30 plus, so I can easily reshape and pick the mods I want. If I think Frenzy for a damage boost will be really good here, then I can do that. If I want Headstone to help me control areas a bit easier, brilliant, I can do that as well. We have so much diversity now, we can pick our own weapons to stun, and craft and level them to make things easier for ourselves. I'm going to suggest 2 of each weapon type for stunning that I think will be good this season. However, there are many more than 2 if you played last season. For assault rifles, a good kinetic is Crate. I have Overflow and Vorpal on mine and it's insane, possibly my favourite auto rifle at the moment. And for energy, the Sweet Sorrow, and this is a craftable weapon, so get crafting and leveling. For kinetic SMGs I would use Submission, and for energy I would suggest Funnel Web. I'm sure we all know why. For scout rifles I would use Night Watch as kinetic, and the new craftable Pointed Inquiry for energy. For kinetic hand cannons I would suggest Fatebringer, and for the energy the Palindrome. For bows I recommend the kinetic Fell Taradiddle and the energy the Under Your Skin, and again these are both craftable. Finally, for pulse rifles I recommend kinetic Syncopation and energy Insidious. So as you can see, there are many options available. I can easily think of another 3 for each, but I'm not trying to keep you guys here all day. Finally, overall loadouts. How do you make a loadout? This is something you will have to learn for yourself. However, I can show you mine at the moment and hopefully it can help guide you. So here's my loadout for this week's Nightfall, and honestly this can be improved a lot. If you look, I don't really have much range, but luckily this strike is a lot of defending and close range rooms, so it did very well. So I'm using Sentinel Shield Titan with Bastion as my first aspect to generate overshield for me and allies, and Controlled Demolition as my second aspect to help my grenades get back quicker, as I'm mainly using overload grenades, so I want it ready whenever I need it. As for my fragments, Echo of Leeching to help me heal when I desperately need it, Echo of Remnants to help my Vortex grenade last longer, and Echo of Undermining to weaken the champions I'm hitting with my grenades. I use the Bastion Fusion Rifle for Unstoppable Stun, to use a special slot and use my exotic slot. Funnel Web with Pulse Monitor and Frenzy to assist with Ad Clear and Overload Stun, and Threaded Needle with Clown Cartridge and Vorpal to clear out champions and other high tier enemies. As for mods on my helmet, I use Double Ashes to Assets to help my super energy, as I got plenty of grenade kills, and Melee Wellmaker to produce wells. For my gauntlets I ran Focusing Strike to help class ability energy, Overload SMGs and Elemental Armaments to again help produce wells. For my chest piece I used a Void Damage Resistance and a Thermo Shock Plating, so I had 1 resist for every damage type, and Elemental Ordnance to produce more wells upon grenade kills. My boots I had Better Already to help health regen if any teammates were generating orbs, Insulation to help my class ability cooldown, and Font of Might to increase my damage with Funnel Web and Threaded Needle. And finally, on my mark I had Overload Grenades, Lucent Finisher to help my team regenerate heavy, and Volatile Flow to make Volatile be everywhere. All in all, this build is successful. It isn't the best, but it's a start. I constantly had Void Wells to increase my damage and inflict Volatile, and I always had my Barricade to generate constant overshield for me and my allies. It was a good mix of survivability and damage, and I will continue to use it for this week's Nightfall. As for next week's Nightfall, I will work on a build for the Grandmaster, and as soon as I've found one that works, I will upload a video for it. So keep your eyes out for that next week. But I think that's it from me guys, so get crafting, leveling and practicing in Master Nightfalls. I hope you all learn the best builds for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or it helped you out at all, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one, Guardians.
But your efforts continue to hold them off. Good work as always, Guardian.